need everyone here to try to empathize with me because it's a lot of pressure to talk with all of you, but I have all of my former bosses and future bosses in the room right now. So over here we have the Lieutenant Governor, Joe Garcia, my very first boss passed. And if he had a microphone, he'd say something snide, so we have my current boss on her last day of her work. The Chief of Staff for the Governor, Roxanne White, is here. Boss, Stephanie Donner might have stepped out. Stephanie Donner, and soon-to-be Chief Legal Counsel, is here as well. And then, just to add a little bit more pressure, the Chief Budget Officer for the Governor, Henry Sobanet, is here. And then to make things all that much worse, my girlfriend, Emily Wallace. So this is about the most nervous I've ever been. And I'm going to be grandiose, because the entire point of my speech is that the nature and power of democracy all emanates from something my grandma makes me say every time I lose a game of Uno, which is, good winner, glad you won, maybe I'll win next time. That's going to take me about 15 minutes to get to, so I'm going to start just by telling you a little bit about myself. So yes, my name is Andrew Freedman, and I love complexity. I've been in love with it my whole life. I went to law school to become an expert in complexity. I had the honor of working for the Lieutenant Governor on complex early childhood issues. We created the Office of Early Childhood, melding streams together. We got an innovation grant for $45 million. I then had the honor of working for the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor, being the point person on something the Governor called the Grand Bargain on Education, which dealt with, it was the preamble to Amendment 66, and dealt with education reforms and fiscal reforms, kind of the likes of which Colorado hadn't seen before. And now I have this unbelievable pleasure of being the first Director of Marijuana Coordination in the country, which means every day I get to work for Roxanne White, and every day I deal with something nobody else has dealt with ever. So I've been unbelievably honored to deal with groundbreaking issues every day. And other than bragging, the point I bring that up for is that I never would have thought when I first came back to Colorado and worked for state government that I would get to work on national issues every day. And in fact, in my first couple of months on the job, I got a text from a friend who was a law school friend working in DC, and she said, "Why is Colorado always hitting the front page of the papers?" And that got me thinking. And I'm not the only one. Frank Brunei of the New York Times wrote an entire Sunday review about this. And he said, "Colorado finds a vivid expression for every national issue out there. We've become the nation's mirror on what we're doing. We're on the front page much more than our population. We're only 22nd most population in the nation. It gives us any right to be." And so there's a few reasons that we can think about. We're 1/3 Democrat, 1/3 Republican, 1/3 Independent, roughly. We're a true purple state. But that's as much a recipe for gridlock as it is for reform, for being innovative. We're the most educated state in the nation, or one of them. But there are a lot of educated states who don't do reform, who are stuck in the old ways. And we're pioneering by nature. But I think that sees us out on the ski slope more than being the leaders in energy, in criminal justice, and social issues. I actually think it's something much different than that. I think Colorado is really good at getting over elections. Meaning, I think we don't politicize implementation. We don't politicize governing. And if I had to put this down into a 140-character tweet, it would be that the essence and power of democratic society is the ability to hear and utilize every viewpoint when implementing the will of the people. And that's a lot, and that's what I'm going to unpack today. And I think the corollary to that is that states and people that can use this power can innovate and can be ahead of the game, can be flexible, can achieve mutual goals. I think it's what Colorado does well. I think we can do it better. And what I'm going to push everybody here for is, how do we make sure we maintain doing that? And how do we make this idea go viral? Because we all know that we need it on a national level. And so, what I'll start with is elections. I love elections. It's the Politico's Super Bowl. We geek out. We all sit around computers, we press refresh, we wait for Anderson Cooper to update his map. We're all there on election day. And for the months leading up to it, I'm reading every bit of analysis. It's that itch you scratch until it hurts and you keep scratching it, and I can't stop it. And to be clear, elections are a thing we should celebrate. When a country has its first election, this idea that we can self-govern, that we can be out there and govern ourselves, the whole world comes to a pause, and we celebrate it, and we should. But here's the slightly controversial thing I want to say today. Voting, elections, they're not democracy. I think we confuse those things. They're important to democracy. They're a part of democracy, but they're not all of it. We become obsessed with voting in a way that I think can be a problem. So stick with me for another second, because I was a philosophy degree major in high school and college. My parents said I would never be able to use it, and we did not open that philosophy factory, but I now get to talk about Jean-Jacques Rousseau to a group of people, and so you have to listen to me. So Rousseau, the social contract, one of the founders of democracy, says that one of the powers of democracy is that we can take our individual needs, we can go higher, we can go to a general will, and there's a general good out there that we can achieve. And he introduced a couple of ways we can think about getting to this general good, and I'm going to, for ease, split it into two ways that we can really think about how we as a democratic society deal with general good. The first one is strong democracy, where a solution is reached through discussion and compromise until we best capture unanimity or consensus. And this is how we should be handling 99% of our work. That you come in with an issue, and it's not about winning or losing. It's just about being recognized for your issue and the system doing the best it can in order to achieve it. But we can't do that with everything. Certainly we have to choose a leader. We have to choose an elected official. We have to decide whether or not we're going to take a new radical path down the legislative agenda. Those all require something different than consensus. They require a vote, a majority. So part of democratic society is also weak democracy, where a solution is reached when only one side gains majority. And certainly this is very necessary, but you have to think about what happens every time we have one of these votes. Nearly 50% of the population believes that their conception of the general good has just been thwarted. And so it's a hard time for our democracy, and it certainly doesn't get us nearly as far as strong democracy gets along the way. And so what I'm concerned about, and what I think we've seen on a national level, is a system error. Our obsession over voting, over weak democracy, has taken over our ability to discuss and to compromise our strong democracy. We've turned everything into voting in elections. Colorado's done better, but almost everybody does this. And so my question that I want to unpack a little bit is, why can't we get over elections? When I was in 5th grade, I ran for student council president. I practiced my speech. I put on a nice, I don't know, get up. I did a sign that said Andrew for Prez, and my best friend Walker held it up. I gave a great speech. Jessica walked in 10 minutes late, kind of stumbled through something, had no sign. I was sure, I was confident in victory. But Jessica had 2 younger brothers in the student council, and they had their own get out the vote operation. So I was stunned by the loss. And I was angry, honestly. I was a little angry 5th grader. And I thought, well, if I still have to sit on the student council, then I will do everything I can to make sure that people understand that I should have been the president. And then 2 things happened. First, there was 1 more spot left on the student council board, and Jessica put me in it, because she's much smarter than me. And the second was that I had a little bit of a crush on Jessica. Sorry. So, I might have been a little quicker to give up on that anger. But the science of winning and losing and what it does to your brain rarely gives that easy way out. And so when we become winners and losers after an election, the winner's brain fills with dopamine receptors activating from hormones. And as the Harvard Business Review says, in all business cases, when this happens, you're left in this position where you want to reassert your wit over and over again, because it's a great feeling. And when you lose, you hit your amygdala, and you have this fear of inadequacy. And so you are stuck in this place where you want to fight. You either want to leave, or you want to fight to prove that you were right the entire time, and not lose face. So after election, we're at this terrible place, where the winners and losers have no reason, no psychological reason to come back to the table with each other. They both want to reassert that they're the winners, that they should never be put in this situation. And I don't think I need very much to convince you all that this is what happens on the national level. I'm going to share 1 quote, and it's going to be from a Republican. But what I don't want you to take from this is that Democrats do it or Republicans do it. We all do it. We all have the chance to spoil a party. And this is from the implementation of Obamacare. Again, something very controversial that happened, but that the implementation probably shouldn't be caught in that. This is from the governor of Louisiana. Here in Louisiana, we've not applied for the grants. We've not accepted many of these dollars. we're not implementing these exchanges. The next opportunity we have to get rid of this law is to get Governor Romney elected. And I absolutely believe that he will be elected in November. So again, pushing us away from the stronger democracy back into winners and losers and into weaker democracy. And this is the point. Here's where I want to show why Colorado is different. In 2010, Waiting for Superman came out. And it was, in the education world, huge because it managed to bust through an ether. And it put forward this idea that one of the reasons we can't give quality education to children is because we've gummed up our pipeline. That teachers, that good teachers can't get promoted and that bad teachers can stay in the system. And basically it came down to tenure and teacher unions standing in the way of reform. And this set up controversies all over the United States. There were bills from state to state. And here, we had Senate Bill 191, which happened about the same time, not because of Waiting for Superman, but was in the works at the same time. And it had a very similar sort of faith in the legislature, which is that the Colorado Education Association, the teachers union for the state of Colorado, very much disagreed with it and battled against it. And it was reformers versus unions. It was a hard battle. There were coalitions. Eventually it won, and it got signed into law by the governor. But I want you to see what the president of the CEA said during implementation. I actually believe that unions have to take ownership of reform. We can't just say no. If we don't like something, we have to propose alternatives. We've got to put kids front and center. And I'm going to give one more example. Marijuana, because I have to get to it. But honestly, I'm 11 minutes and 40 seconds into a speech, and this is the longest I've ever gone without talking about marijuana since I became director. It has ruined dinner parties. Today I've already heard how high are the taxes, and how many joint committees have we heard, and did I bring any edibles? So, you're not that clever. So the Yes on 64 campaign, again, had a lot of people against it, our governor being chief amongst it, somebody who did not agree that this is the next step that Colorado should take. But we took it. And so I want you to see what the governor said the day after, or in order to implement the task force. All stakeholders share an interest in creating efficient and effective regulations that provide the responsible development of the new marijuana laws. We can coordinate and create a regulatory structure that promotes the health and safety of the people of Colorado. And then again, we set up the Amendment 64 task force, and we moved on. And the reason I bring up these two examples is because I actually think this is why we keep innovating in Colorado. It's because even if you were for Obamacare, you've seen the world tear apart after we tried it. And people don't like that. That turns everybody off. And so even if you wanted to try something new, you know, God, if I put that out there, people are just going to yell at me for 3 years, make it about the next election. And even if it was successful, it's going to take us 10 years to figure that out. And by that point, you know, all of our reputations, all of our lives, the media circus, it's not worth it. And here in Colorado, we know that we do these things, and the sky's not going to fall. We're going to figure out how to make it work, which gives people the faith to try new things along the way, even if we disagree with them. And so I want to talk quickly about what we can do to make sure we continue to do this and really to push it to the national level. One is we have to demand better from ourselves and our leaders. Out of my 3 codes, there's 3 clear examples of whether or not you take weak democracy or strong democracy. And whether or not you're going to politicize it or not politicize it. And what I think is beholden on us is even if we disagree with a step that the legislator might have taken, that our voters might have taken, that we hold our leaders accountable for implementing it the best way they know how. On that, I just can't get over how many times I'm talking about the governor and all the work he's doing to make sure legalization works. And I hear from people nationally, well, he shouldn't be doing that because this was a bad step and he should do everything he can to thwart it. And I tell them that I'm proud to work for a governor who puts democracy over politics, over whatever his personal opinion is. And so I think that's a way that we have to hold people accountable for that. The other thing is we have to find our past enemies and set mutual goals. We have this group in Colorado called Smart Colorado, and they've done something really unbelievably spectacular. There's a group of mothers who are devastated by the passage of Amendment 64 and show it every day. But they got together with edible manufacturers, and they had a very reasonable discussion where they can say our goals are 1, nobody wants this inside of schools, and 2, nobody wants accidental ingestion by children. And they argue and they fight every day together, but they've agreed on those two mutual goals. And because they've agreed on those goals, in the first 6 months of legalization, they got stricter dosing requirements, stricter labeling, stricter packaging. And they couldn't have done it if they hadn't worked together in that way. And finally, I have the two most exciting words in all of government: working. Honestly, the way I've changed the most is working groups are more exciting than elections for me now. And I want them to be for everyone. I love this graphic. People that walk in with mutual goals, people that walk in even with their own goals, but know the scope of why they're there, and know that they are there to protect children, or know that they're there to make regulation work, really do put together the best roadmap. This is strong democracy in action, and it's where we can get the most work done. And so, it's the dawn of a new day in Denver and in Colorado, and it's the day after elections, it's the week after elections, and it's really super cold, but it'll get warmer. And we have choices to make. I know that I have a lot of work to get done because I have to make sure we get banking done to get cash off the streets. I have to make sure that we do a lot of work on edibles so that we don't have any more tragedies. I have to make sure every day that we keep marijuana out of the hands of kids. And the only way I know how to do it is those three things. And the only way we do that is if we all buy in. And I think everybody has issues that are near and dear to their heart. And I think the way that I would want to ask everybody in this crowd to go out and do is look each other in the eye, say, "Good winner, glad you won. Maybe I'll win next time." And then get on with the real work, the Colorado way. Thank you.